that is slightly dismaying. And it is concerning this rise of authoritarianism in America. And it's been going on for the past 50 years. And it's always been a part of the world at large. And let me see if I can change my music to something that's just a little bit quieter than this, because it's just a little bit too loud. Let's try ambient atmosphere and see what we think of this one. The piano's just a little bit too loud. Well, this is a little weird. We'll try it though. If it doesn't work, let me know in chat. We'll find something else. But once I get going on this, it's going to be hard to stop because I have to concentrate. Because it is Friday, you know. So here we go with this idea of authoritarianism. And one person that I find very interesting, who has dealt with authoritarianism for most of his life, and he is dead now, is Václav Havel. He was a playwright on the rise in Czechoslovakia, the Czech Republic. He became their president. Some people liked him, some people didn't like him, but he always tried to speak truth to power. And it got him in a lot of trouble. And in his famous essay that was written in 2011, Power of the Powerless, this is what he wrote. When I speak of living within the truth, I naturally do not have in mind only products of conceptual thought, such as a protest or a letter written by a group of intellectuals. It can be any means by which a person or a group revolts against manipulation. Anything from a letter by intellectuals to a workers' strike, from a rock concert to a student demonstration, from refusing to vote in the farcical elections to making an open speech at some official congress or even a hunger strike, for instance. If the suppression of the aims of life is a complex process, and if it is based on the multifaceted manipulation of all expressions of life, then by the same token, every free expression of life indirectly threatens the post-totalitarian system politically, including forms of expression to which in other social systems no one would attribute to any potential political significance, not to mention explosive power. Now that's a lot to think about. That's a lot to take on. So let's have a little bit of analysis from someone who reviewed a book about Václav Havel. And this was their analysis. Havel is a writer and activist and president of a country never strayed from a central faith that human consciousness is inherent to the individual. He believed that the essential self is vulnerable to the influence of authoritarianism and crass consumerism, but that it is also the key to liberty. In his most widely read essay, which we just read part of, The Power of the Powerless, Václav Havel argues that each individual has the ability to resist and ultimately topple authoritarianism by withholding what he calls ritual approval from an ideological regime. As Xantovsky summarizes it, the human capacity to live in truth, to reaffirm man's authentic identity, is the nuclear weapon that gives power to the powerless. So what is ritual approval? Well, Havel is talking about not going along with what the authoritarians want. You can quietly protest. You can actively protest. You cannot participate. In places like China, you see masses of people lined up. North Korea, lined up in the public square, cheering, bowing, waving, all on cue. That is ritual approval. You might not believe it. You might not support it inside of your mind, but publicly, the body that is in movement and in space is there supporting the authoritarian regime. And we are seeing echoes and traces of that sort of human violence right here in America, where you better be on the right side or we're going to go after you. And we're going to leave voicemail for you, and we're going to threaten your life. Now, you can't threaten me back because I'll go to the police and complain, and I'll get you arrested. But I can threaten you because that's my right. That's the thinking. That's where we are right now. And then I remembered, 2018, I did a little podcast about Václav Havel, Velvet Revolution playwright president. I'll play you 30 seconds of this so I can entice you to go listen to the whole thing on humanmeme.com. Welcome. This is David Bowles' Human Meme. Today's topic, Václav Havel, Velvet Revolution playwright president. The goal of every playwright is to change the world, to bring morality back to the center core of us, and to, with finality, preserve the truth and bring light to the facts of the human condition. There are few playwrights in history who have made such a substantial mark on lives well beyond the current capacity of living and engagement. And that's how it begins, and it goes on a little longer than that, for my defense and support of a playwright. Oh, now the music's very loud. For a playwright who has the power of making change in the world. And some say if you want to be change, be the change you want to see. Well, some people are not able to do that. And that's why they need help. And that's why people like Václav Havel stand up and take a stand and say, you can follow me. I'm changing the music. This is very loud. Oh, we'll see if this is any better. So now we move to artist Ai Weiwei. Now he's very interesting. He is a dissident, and he fights back. I shared his bleak outlook of the United States recently while promoting his memoir in a new interview on PBS's Firing Line. He pointed out that authoritarians cannot be by themselves and instead must rely on a system, a political system, that supports their views. In his book, I described Mao Zedong's directives during the Cultural Revolution in China, which were distributed at night. He compared them to former President Donald Trump's midnight tweets. I disagreed, however, when asked if he thought Trump was authoritarian. He stated that the U.S. is already behaving like an authoritarian state, and much of it has to do with efforts for people to be unified in a certain political correctness. And you see that happening in the GOP. You better be on our side. You better follow Trump. If you're not a Trumper, you're not part of the GOP. In many ways, you're already in the authoritarian state. You just don't know it. I told Firing Line host Margaret Hoover, who asked him to elaborate. I explained that with today's technology, we know so much more than we actually understand. The information has become jammed, but we don't really have the knowledge because you don't work. You don't have to act on anything. You just think you're purified by certain ideas that you agree with. That is posing dangers to society, to an extremely divided society. And isn't that the truth? We have two sides. We'll say the right and the left. And all they think they have to do is talk and threaten, without putting any action behind it. And I'm not talking about shooting people or hurting people, but if you believe something, you should be out there trying to make change in the world. And the left loves to parade and loves to protest, and the right loves to stand around and mock and make fun of those protests, except at night when they're carrying tiki torches. Then they don't want to be mocked, and if you mock them, they get very upset. Now, continuing our chess theme and the geniuses who are in that world, we turn to Garry Kasparov, former world champion. And he's been very political. He's a Russian who came up the wrong way. He was the wrong kind of Russian. Karpov was the world champion, and Garry tried to beat him, but he was not a purebred Russian, we might say. Had some wrong countries, wrong kind of religion to be fully accepted by the system. And the system fought him, and he fought the system back. And today he writes and supports information and freedom and forward thinking. I think of Donald Trump's ascent and the KGB operations to help him get elected. I saw the Russian propaganda machine fully supporting Trump and using the newly built troll factories and fake news industry to help Trump get elected. And whatever Trump's relations with the KGB were in the past, I believe there were, it was clear that Putin thought that was a time to go for this final blow to divide America, to create in American democracy a friction it could not heal. Trump was an ideal agent of chaos. It's like an icebreaker, destroying the American political system. I don't think Putin expected Trump to win, but I think he thought that Trump could do what he is doing now, sowing division. And I remember early in Trump's campaign, I would have conversations with people online, and they would make wild accusations. And I would ask, where are you getting this information from? And they would send me stuff from RT News. And I would go check out the link, and it was, everything that they said is what was said in RT News. And I said to these people who were posting this, do you know what RT News is? It's Russian television. It's RT, Russian television. It's Russian propaganda in English on the American internet. And you're being duped by them. They're selling you a story that you're buying and propagating and making part of your own world belief. And you're spreading that information on my site and other sites and claiming that it's right and real. And you can certainly do that. But are you aware that you are a puppet of Russian television? And of course, when you have a conversation like that, people don't reply to you. They just disappear. But you still have the conversation because it's important for other people who are reading and watching and not saying anything, because that happens a lot. And you can see in page views, you can see there are people reading what you're writing, even if they're not responding. And even if the people you are responding to disappear, or call you names and then disappear, which is usually what happens. Or they say, next time I see you, I'll bring a gun. That's usually how these conversations end. They don't end intellectually. They don't end, well, let's agree to disagree. They end with a threat that they make against you, and it usually involves a gun. So this idea of being woke is the new cudgel that the right is using against the left. Being woke is politically incorrect. It means that you're doing and saying things you don't believe in just because you don't want to get in trouble and be outside the circle of approval. Well, John McWhorter wrote an interesting piece about the meaning and the history of being woke that you can read. And here's a quote from his article. The first thing that happened to woke was that it was borrowed from black slang. John McWhorter is a black writer. Not that it matters, but this is where he's coming from. It first appeared in neither a BuzzFeed article nor a rap, but a jolly piece on black vernacular expressions in 1962 in a newspaper called If You're Woke, You Dig It. Many will be surprised that salty as in irritable, another black expression that white people have taken on of late, also occurs in that particular piece. By the time something hits the page, we can be sure it's been around a long time, and it's a good guess that black people had been using woke for at least a couple of decades before people are using it now. Leadbelly, that's a blues performer, gives us a look at its likely origins when he urges people to stay woke in an after-peace remark on a 1938 recording. He is referring to black people being alert to actual physical danger. It would have been a natural evolution to start using stay woke to refer more to, as we say, systemic matters. It was after 2010 that woke jumped the fence into mainstream parlance. Erykah Badu's master teacher seems to have at least planted a seed, and then those stay woke salutes on Twitter in 2012 were in the wake of the Trayvon Martin killing, upon which the expression was truly set in stone. So that's the history and meaning behind a word that has deep ramifications. It's a warning, not a political way of thinking at all. It's watch your back. In the context of you're a minority, you're black, people are after you, watch your back, stay awake. Pay attention. Be woke. That's where it comes from. That's not what it means now today because it's been twisted. And now we take the next step in this cudgeling of American democracy by the hard right and dictators and authoritarians the world over. Authoritarians want authoritarianism here in America. They don't want democracy or free speech or free elections. They want to lock us down as we are trying to unlock their countries. And it's dangerous. So Cody Kane has a very interesting argument on how things work. Oh, what's Dora saying? I don't know if we'll be able to go back to a United Nation, or at least for one where diverse views are listened to without being disparaged. Facebook or Meta, I think, is not any I do need to know what my friends or neighbors politically think. Do I need to know what my friends or neighbors politically think? That's a good point. And that's where we are, where people think they know what they're talking about. And I don't say I do, but I try to research and find out things from both sides to try to form the illusion of something that makes sense in the world without just being negative and awful and trying to tear apart your community or your neighborhood. So this Cody Kane writes very presciently about how these dictators work. They start by saying, I'm of the people. And you can relate this directly to Donald Trump. I'm of the people. I understand you're on your phone, Dora. Thank you. I want Medicare for all. I want everybody to have money. I want infrastructure. All these great things to get the popular vote, the socialist vote. The vote of the middle, the vote of the trembling liberals. And then once they get in power, it all changes. I don't want any of that. I want you to be quiet while I do my thing. So why do so many dictators claimed? Oh, restarting. That's good. Yes, restart. I don't think we're frozen. I think we're still live. Yes, we're live. So why have so many dictators claimed to lead left-wing socialist governments? Very interesting. For a very good reason. Think about the situation from the perspective of a right-wing, wannabe tyrant who desires to seize control of government. What campaign message should the wannabe tyrant communicate to the population? Should the tyrant tell the population, I am a devious person. I want to be a dictator who controls everything myself. I want to suppress all the working people, corrupt the government, and steal loads of money by abusing my power? Well, of course not. Tyrants who desire to become dictators cannot possibly tell you the truth. In order to seize power and remain in control, tyrants must lie to the people, misrepresenting themselves as someone they are not. Clearly, tyrants should pretend to be someone who can offer what the people desire. Many tyrants falsely proclaim to be Marxists, believe it or not, socialists and left-wingers, because the ideas of the left are broadly popular among the oppressed classes in many countries around the world. And for good reason. Left-wing policies would indeed improve the quality of their life in most situations, in most societies. Once in office, however, the tyrants do not truly implement left-wing policies, but instead rely on totalitarian, right-wing policies, such as consolidating their own power, restricting democracy, aligning with the wealthy, and imprisoning political dissidents, and so on, all while falsely proclaiming to represent the left. Interesting, fascinating disconnection. So, Cody continues, now updating his argument from general authoritarianism to the specific. Trump's presidential campaign in 2016 was significantly focused on appealing to the blue-collar working class by promising to implement a number of popular left-wing policies. To be sure, Trump also campaigned on plenty of right-wing appeals, such as opposition to immigration, xenophobic nationalism, overt racism and sexism, gun rights, and so forth. But Trump intentionally sought the support of blue-collar working-class voters by promising left-wing policies. He promised a new healthcare system with universal coverage for everyone at a mere fraction of the cost. He promised he would stop U.S. corporations from shipping jobs overseas and would bring back jobs to America. He promised he would never cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. He promised to get tough on Big Pharma and cut the high costs of drug prices. He promised a massive investment in America's infrastructure like roads and bridges. He promised to tax the rich, including himself, and provide a massive tax cut for the middle class. But once Trump was elected, of course, he abandoned all those promises of policies that would benefit the working class, and instead implemented right-wing policies that benefited large corporations and the rich at the top, including granting a massive tax cut to himself and the rich, slashing regulations for big business, seeking to repeal the Affordable Care Act, and seeking to cut out Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And this all happened. A promise was made, a promise was not delivered, as all part of the plan. This is exactly the dictator's playbook for deceiving the population. Trump followed it faithfully. His entire presidency was based upon a big lie. And the big lie is not the stolen election that he claims, which was not stolen. The big lie is he promised a liberal agenda, and once he was elected, he did just the opposite of everything he said he would do. And that's just not Trump. That's throughout history. That's how dictators operate. They get elected by the people, then they get in power, and then they will not go away. They will stay We see it in Putin. We see it happening in China. And if Donald Trump or someone like him got elected, with all the power they've now consolidated in the states to really rig an election and take it away from the voters, would we ever get rid of them? Or let me phrase that another way. Would they ever not want to be president? And what could we do to stop them? And what could we do to stop them? I'm not leaving. I invalidate the election. I'm president forever. Who would stop them? Not the Democrats. The Democrats are incompetent. Definitely not the GOP. Who would save us? The Supreme Court? Never. The Supreme Court is over. They've lost their authority. They've lost their integration. They've lost their integrity. Because it's all political. And it always has been. But now it's been revealed. And it's been dedicated and demoralized and demonized. And we're in a stuck place. As long as you have a true liberal promising to take care of the people, we'll be all right. But that doesn't happen very often, especially not in America. And now we close with this frightening news that just happened this morning and seemed like the perfect frosting on our cupcake in this terrible discussion of wokeness and authoritarianism in America. Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida wants to be president. You can see the taste on him and in him. He wants to resurrect the Florida State Guard, a World War II parliamentary force that was disbanded in the 1940s. Unlike the Florida National Guard, the Florida State Guard would answer solely to the governor. No federal deployments, no federal missions like the National Guard, no federal dollars. DeSantis wants the civilian volunteer force to include about 200 members. They would assist the National Guard with hurricane, natural disaster, and other state-specific emergencies. Price tag $3.5 million. We want to be able to have a quick response capability, and reestablishing the Florida State Guard will allow civilians from all over the state to be trained in the best emergency response techniques and have the ability to mobilize very, very quickly, DeSantis said. The upside, DeSantis added, they're not encumbered by the federal government. So you talk about dictators who want to be kings and run their own little despot nations. Florida, Ron DeSantis wants his own private guard. His own private Praetorian Guard that answers only to him as the governor, that he can use as he wishes to enforce whatever policy he wants. And this is a man who wants to lead the United States of America? Doesn't seem very democratic to me. I think it raises a lot of alarm bells. And we need to be aware of it, and we need to spread the word, and we need to talk about these things. Whatever side you're on, we need to know who these people are and what they want to do to us. And we need to find out who's kept their word and who has broken their word, because it matters.